All right, so right here in the middle of page 69, Ash remembered the dead guards and acted without further hesitation. He raised the crowbar as if it was no more than a large stick and threw it at Thorn as hard as he could. After that, everything dropped into bizarre, frame-by-frame slow motion. Ash had time to watch the crowbar tumble, spinning lengthwise as it crossed the distance to the edge of the semicircle of light. He saw Thorn's shadow standing motionless, the crowbar heading toward him like a propeller, and when it was only a few feet away, Thorn began to react. He must have moved like lightning, even though it looked so much slower to Ash. Thorn bent at the knees, then twisted and started to shift sideways, but he wasn't quick enough. The curved end of the tool struck his right shoulder, and Ash saw the wrinkle in the material of his jacket. The crowbar jerked when it made contact, flicking up so the straight end caught Thorn on the chin. Ash had time to see the ripples spread out across his cheek and neck. Then Thorn went down with a grunt, disappearing into the darkness. A rush of air, and the world hurried back into real time with sharp clangs as the crowbar hit the floor, and a clatter of Thorn's knife spun away to be lost beneath the shelving. All Ash could do was crouch there, staring at the space where Thorn had been standing. He couldn't believe what he had done. Oh, I just lost my place. Sorry about that. What had felt like 10 seconds must have happened in the blink of an eye. "You got him," Isabel said. You hit him." Her words were tight and breathless. Ash stared at the spot where Thorn had been standing. "I killed him? I don't think so, just hit him." As if to confirm it, a long groan came from the shadows. "We have to get away." Isabel reached into the locker, taking the first block out of the metal box and shoving it into the satchel. "He's waking up." She grabbed another two, jamming them in, then threw in a box of detonators and took hold of Ash's arms. "We must go." "Yes." Ash shook himself, still trying to understand what he had done. How he had moved so quickly and felt so strong. "Come on." Isabel threw the satchel over her shoulder. "We have to get out of here. Leave him in the dark." Ash nodded and snatched up the light before they took off, hurrying between the shelves, racing along the lengths of the storage facility toward the way out. Somewhere behind them, Thorn groaned again and tried to get to his feet. It wouldn't be long before he came after them. They didn't have much time. He grabbed a second crowbar without breaking stride and continued along the length of the cavernous storeroom. Isabel's boots thundered on the concrete floor, and their panting echoed around them. By the time they reached the exit, Ash was ahead, running so fast that he slammed into the doors, arms out to avoid hurting himself. He grabbed the handles, yanking them open, and the two of them rushed out into the corridor. Ash then turned to push the door shut and slipped the crowbar between the handles. That should slow him down. They ran and ran, blundering on with only the cocoon of light around them. Isabel stayed just ahead, picking out the right way to go, and Ash followed close behind, watching the satchel bouncing on her back. "Boom," the voice kept saying in his head. That sneering voice, floating down from the dark tower in his mind. "Boom, she's got a bomb on her back." When they came to the lobby stairwell, they raced down, taking the stairs two at a time, turning the corner, then jumping the final few steps. Debris from the helicopter crash dug into the soles of Ash's feet as they hurried over to the building's entrance. Without power, the sliding doors remained firmly shut. Isabel shook the pack from her back and crouched to remove one of the bricks of explosives. She was breathing heavily. "Aren't you tired?" she asked. "No." Ash dismissed the comment. "You sure you know what you're doing?" "I saw Papa do this." She tore off the brown paper to reveal a firm white putty underneath. "Careful." Ash took a step back, expecting it to explode in Isabel's hand as she twisted off a piece the size of a matchbox. She squashed it flat and stuck it into the glass doors like a giant blob of used chewing gum. "Is that enough?" Ash asked. It's powerful. Oh, he winced and took a step back. When she was done, Isabel reached into the satchel and took out one of the metal matchstick detonators. She pushed it into the putty. It switched on the trigger device that looked like a smartphone. It burst into life, displaying a large red button on the touchscreen with the word pair on it. Isabel tapped it once. Immediately, a tiny green light appeared at the end of the matchstick detonator. At the same time, 3 words materialized on the device's touchscreen. HE, flash, and smoke. Do you know what they all mean? Ash peered over her shoulder, then glanced back at the stairwell. Mm-hmm, Isabel nodded. This one is high explosive. She touched the HE, which flashed once before it was replaced with 2 other words. Timer, mark. Isabel touched mark, and a white dot began tracing across the screen in a Z pattern. The word confirm appeared above it. I think that's it, Isabel said. You think? I hope you're right about this. Me too. Ash took a deep breath and shook his head in disbelief. Okay, what now? Isabel looked at Ash and blinked hard. There was sweat on her brow and determination in her eyes. We get back. Right back. Behind the counter? He asked. Farther. The stairs? Isabel got to her feet and picked up the satchel. Farther. Without waiting for Ash, she started walking back to the stairwell, taking strong, purposeful strides. Bring the flashlight. Ash was glad to see Isabel being tough. She had taken control of the Hex 13 and looked stronger now than she had in the lab. It was as if she had realized that there was no point in being scared and hoping someone would come to help them. No one was coming except Thorn. Seeing Isabel like that made him feel better, and he snatched up the light and jogged after his friend, picking through the debris and heading along the corridor at the top of the stairs. They continued to the end, past room X, where it had all started for Ash, and crouched with their backs against the solid wall. This is it. Isabel took a deep breath. Will it be loud? He asked. Isabel nodded, and Ash knew he had to prepare for the worst. With his senses as crazy as they were, there was a good chance this was going to hurt. A lot. They stared at each other for a moment, then both looked down at the device in Isabel's hand. You've seen this before, Ash said. You know what you're doing, I trust. Clang! From somewhere deep in the building came a metallic sound, followed by doors rattling. He's trying to get out, Ash said. Isabel moved her thumb so it was hovering over the touchscreen. Another loud clang! Ash imagined Thorn, face twisted in anger, swinging an axe at the door, breaking it from its hinges. The door's too strong, Isabel said, isn't it? Yeah, of course. I'm sure it is, definitely. But what if he uses the Hex 13? It's experimental, isn't it? Even if he can find it in the dark, it'll take him time to work out how to use it. Come on, let's do this and get out of here. Isabel focused on the trigger device in her shaking hand. The white glow continued to move in a Z shape across the screen. The word confirm along the top. It repeated the pattern, waiting for Isabel to trace it, but she couldn't get her thumb to move. Do it, Ash said. It was their only hope, the only way they were ever going to get out, the only way to help his mom and Isabel's dad, the only way to stop Pierce from taking Kronos off the island. Millions will die. I can't, Isabel said. I can't move. Her voice wavered in panic. The banging continued, echoing through the corridors. It was growing louder and more terrifying with each passing moment. Thorn was like an angry, caged monster, and with every second he was coming closer to escape. Isabel was struggling to keep the device still, her whole hand jittering about. Ash put his own trembling hands around Isabel's. his thumb over the top of hers, and looked into her eyes. They would do it together. Unable to cover his ears, Ash prepared himself for the painful noise and began to count. The banging continued, clang, clang, over and over. 2, 3. Ash pushed Isabel's thumb onto the touchscreen, and together they traced the Z. The effect was instantaneous. Okay, go ahead and hit pause and do your questions that go along with that section. If you have any questions, email me.